Hello, everybody. This is Stu Smith with the Tactical Fitness Report, and we're here with Pat Bonus, who is up in Connecticut. He's part of the Heroes of Tomorrow program, where he trains a group of guys up there with running and swimming and PTing and lifting and boats and logs and all that fun stuff. So good to have you back, Patrick. I know you've done a couple of these podcasts with me before, but you sent me a nice email. After I think I wrote the durability article that just went out. I just shared it on Instagram. It's on military.com if you look up the durability article. Anyway, you said something really cool that I thought was worth discussing. So what is it that you told me? What is durability, I guess, and how does it relate to other elements of fitness?
Yeah, I think of endurance as a physical thing, and then the ability to endure, more of a mental, um, getting through really like misfortunate situations. So it was, you know, endurance versus the ability to endure.
Okay. I like
So
that. So that you kind of take durability to another level with that phrase. So I'm thinking durability as a physiological response to strength training and power training and building strong joints and strong muscles and bones so that you can endure the physical impact of running or boats on your heads or logs on your shoulders or just the miles, multiple miles of running too. I mean, yeah, you need endurance, but can you endure those impact forces that are created? So that's where I kind of went with the durability, but I liked your idea of discussing durability as the ability to endure. So take
yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, yeah. No, and I think it's hypothetical often until it happens. So, not to bring up rough situations, I know you lost your mom, and I lost my dad, and
Yep.
we all had these situations that are varying degrees that come to us at different times in our life. But when you have a goal in mind and you're set and you're training, and um, you have a very, very good endurance athlete. Well, what happens if you throw something like that into the mix, or you throw a girlfriend, a fiance, a wife, a child on the way? Any of those things are going to impact your ability to endure the process. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, the idea that I was thinking of is that and I've seen great endurance athletes in being in a bike race or running, and then all of a sudden a variable comes in, whatever that variable may be, and that uncontrollable, and how are they going to endure through the situation? I've seen people pull out of races, and it's not that they're not physically fit, it's that they don't have a good ability to cope or endure through a process that has an uncontrollable. And I shared an example. I bumped into a former commander of DevGru, and he spoke to a group of candidates, and one of the real telling things that he said is that he was older in buds, and these two guys specifically, one who was a really, really strong swimmer, not a bad runner but a really strong swimmer, helped him with his swim. A really, really strong runner, not a bad swimmer but a really strong runner, helped him with his run times. And both of those guys who helped him, and he obviously successfully got through the program,
Sure.
neither one of those guys made it.
Hmm.
And he didn't speak specifically about the ability to endure, but the swimmer, they were doing they were doing, I don't know what you call it, surf torture,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. You get
And
cold.
he wouldn't do it.
Right.
The waves were really big. It was night, and he was a collegiate swimmer, and he didn't feel it was safe,
Oh, wow.
and so he quit. And so that story that he told us was, I was looking at, well, how do I get guys ready to endure those obstacles? That when your mind's telling you this isn't safe, this isn't right, how are you going to endure that process?
That's a really good point because that, like I said, you're taking durability to a different level. And really it's a stress coping process more than anything, because one, you're going to be under physiological stress, but two, when you start thinking, you're going to be adding mental stress. And like I said, family issues, other things, you get your feelings hurt, whatever, gets thrown at you. You're feeling down on yourself because you failed something, all those little things add up to an emotional stress. And the three combined together is like the perfect storm for failure. You know what I mean? So when you combine those three stresses together, I mean, that's the three stresses right there. You combine all three of them, it's a perfect storm for failure, or it's the perfect storm to explode out of it and be even stronger. Sometimes you just got to get pissed off and turn it off, right? And there's like, I remember this little moment where, it was cold, it was wet, we were tired, we just got through doing a 4-mile timed run and half the class failed it, so they were making us run it again. And, line back up, run it again. And sure enough, we got up to that starting line, 3 guys quit, right? Right. Just the thought of running that 4 miles over again was just too much for them. Right. And, they had just failed. You got to remember too, a lot of these guys that go out for these programs aren't used to failing. They have conquered a whole lot of stuff in their life, and, they're not used to negative feedback. They've been, star athletes all their lives, whatever, and that first dose of negative feedback and failing can be a big emotional stressor for you. Right. And to deal with that, I've always said, get as much negative feedback as you can prior to going, because you're going to get it. Right. And, something funny too, with that 4-mile timed run, number 2, is they got 3 quitters, and then they started us off, blew the whistle, started running, and they said, turn around. We ran about 100 yards. They just want to see who was ready to run another 4-mile timed run.
So the test was the test.
Yeah.
Just see who would show up. I had kids the other day crawling through mud, and we do this thing where they have to, on their backs, they have to buddy carry through the mud under a rope. If they touch the rope, they reset. And this is in my leadership class. And I had 4 kids they had the horrible mindset starting out. They were like, this, what is the point? I could just see it in their body language. They were sarcastic. They were this. And I might take the negative reinforcement to an extreme. It's intentional to get these kids durable. That's,
yes.
to use your term. And we always reflect at the end, and I'm a little more kind. So I actually, I isolated these 4 kids and I put them on the far side of the ropes, and I made them do the work first. I told the other guys that why were they put on the other side of the rope. I basically, which isn't really great in education, I singled these kids out. And so I put them over there. I made them do more work. They crawl under the I'll send you a video. They're crawling under the mud. They're crawling under the ropes. They're covered in mud. It's cold. It's windy. It's cloudy. It's all this sort of stuff. But I didn't have one quitter. Even when I reset them, when they were done, they all cheered for each other. The kids who were starting off in the worst leadership mindset of sarcastic, like, excuse my term, but F this, there's no point, I don't want to do this, became actually very, very good leaders. And by the end of it, what we talked about is how intentional this was. You're looking at the mud, you're slopping through it, you're cold, you don't want to get dirty, you don't want to get into it. And what it teaches, in my opinion, is that they could have walked away. They could have pouted and walked away and called their mom, called their dad, and said, this, I'm going to get hypothermic. But not one kid quit. Not one kid walked away. Not one kid gave up. And in my opinion, they all, from that experience, there was no trophy. There's no accolades. They all got more durable. I got into some kids' faces. I call them out. And I have star athletes. I have Division I basketball. I have kids committed to Division I hockey programs. So I have those kids who have been told they're great all the time, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And that lesson is to say, not everybody's going to love you. Not everybody's going to admire, you being a Division I goalie. Not everyone is going to look to you and put you on a pedestal, and that you have to get used to that. And I'm not trying to kill their spirit. I'm actually trying to build their spirit. I'm
Oh
trying
yeah,
to knock their ego down. And
absolutely.
I think, that timed run that you said, I do that in my physiology class at times too, is that it, the kids who don't whine and complain, and even if like maybe I haven't timed the test right, but they show up and they do it, they all get a better grade. They all, because they just sit down, they bulldog it, they don't complain. They even sometimes, I've taught this, this accountability. They're accountable even when they probably shouldn't be.
Oh,
And
okay,
that's,
got it.
and so that's the test, like you said, is the test. Who's
Yeah,
just going to show up, not complain, and do it? And then,
yeah, that's the mindset. Like that. In fact, let me share that with you. I'm going to share something with you real quick. I'm going to share my screen. I think I can do that. So I should have had this up earlier, but I apologize. Let me see. Where's my?
you're way better than I am, because my computer would shut down if I tried to do this.
All right. So here we go. This
Yeah, yeah,
is along the lines of when we talk about tactical fitness and tactical athlete and what we're trying to do. And this is more kind of built towards the guy who's already through the selection, already through that, because I put in there the stress mitigation, but it's really for everybody, because even if you're a candidate, you need to focus on this. It's just the stress mitigation is a whole lot different, because you're going to have job related stresses that you encounter when you're a first responder that are different than the more physiological and mental stresses that you're going to have as a student. So, like I said, the center focus of the operator is longevity, mainly because you're going to be older longer than you are younger in this profession, right? So we got to
yeah.
focus on this, and where people look at this chart and they say, "Oh man, I really need to work on my nutrition. I need to work on my recovery and maybe mindfulness and work on some stress mitigation skills." But where you're talking about here is kind of a combination between durability and stability, because you got your strength, power, speed, and agility. Obviously, work capacity is part of that as well, because we're talking about endurance a little bit. But mindset, right here, down here with the stability. Now, this isn't necessarily mental stability. This is more coordination, how you handle job skills, how you move, balance, muscle imbalances. Have you alleviated those? Help you with prevention of injuries, all that stuff. So that's kind of where like I said, I tend to focus more on the physiological in this, but
Yep.
mindset is very important, because it's part of that aggressiveness that you need. You need to also be able to shut it down and not think so much sometimes, because I one thing that I learned when I was going through Hell Week, and at the end of Hell Week, I really I figured out that the body is 10 times stronger than the mind will let it be.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
that is a way of saying disengage the mind, but really the mind is part of it as well, because the mind controls the body. But you, at some point, you have to kind of disengage a section of the brain that is telling you to stop, telling you you're tired, go to sleep, this is dangerous. And how to do that, I wish I had an easy answer to say, how you do that. But really, it comes down to, really, why do you want to do this?
Hmm.
Why are
Yeah.
you enduring this mental, physical beatdown, right? Are you trying to get better? Do you want to be part of a group that will challenge you for the rest of your life? Do you want to be, you know, first team, second team, whatever, all American? What are your goals, and what are your reasons why you are doing this? Do you just love this job? Do you love the people around you? There's so many little things that you can take and add to your why.
Hmm.
Because one thing buds in whatever military group that I was in, we came close, whether it was midshipmen at the academy, roommates, company mates. Whenever you're enduring something together, you become close, and,
Yes.
when you're on a sports team too. And I'm a firm believer in sports. However, it doesn't have to be sports. I've seen some of the best team players come um, out of band and dancing, believe it or not. I mean,
Well,
think about, and drama club,
how coordinated do you all have to be for it to be,
to make it
it
work.
has to be all synchronized.
Everything's got to work, whether
And
it's a band, it's dancing, it's acting, it's putting on a play or whatever. Those guys that have those experiences, there is constant negative feedback coming from your director, your coach, your, whatever, leader that's in charge of those groups, whether it's athletic or not, that is constantly fixing what you screw up. You mess
mhm.
up on a play because you go left, you should have gone right. You're going to get negative feedback from that. You mess up on a note that you're supposed to hit at a certain time and the whole song screws up, that is good negative feedback. I tell you what, my daughter went through 15 years of ballet and she would come home just beaten, right? Because she is constantly getting negative feedback from just little things like your hand was this way and it should have been this way. I mean,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I mean, but she came out tougher for that. And she is like kicking ass in college and, you know, not scared of anything. She's not scared of the negative feedback that she gets from her engineering course instructors and things like that. So it's very valuable. So
Yeah.
get
Well,
involved in something.
and you, if you, too much positive encouragement, and I talked to you about, I talked prior to you about positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and then what we should all work on is truthful reinforcement. Truthful reinforcement should be what we all use, and that is, if you are if you're a hot mess, I gotta tell you,
Yes.
it's not negative reinforcement, it's the reality. It is negative reinforcement, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
And then, but if you're doing well and you pick yourself up, or you know that's, that positive reinforcement is not necessarily positive, it's truthful. You're doing a good job, I'm going to tell you you're doing a good job. If you're not, then I'm going to tell you that. And so it's truthful. But the thing is, at times too, when someone is doing a really great job, it's not, this sounds bad, but like you said earlier, they need to be tempered, right? Like the Division I athlete needs to be like, okay, like, you're thinking you're hot stuff, you're not, and
Yeah.
so, and the kid who is not doing so hot needs to be encouraged. And team sports, what I really like is when my boys on their swim team, they or they do their individual stuff, that's fine. Their team medleys are the best, because my son Cullen is waiting. He's the last one. He's in the 8 and unders. He's waiting on the edge of the pool till he can go, and he's slapping the water and he's cheering. He's like, go, go, go. And he's cheering on his teammates, waiting to go. And he told me, he came back from meet this weekend that I couldn't go to because I was teaching. And he's like, Dad, Edward told me that we were behind going into our last 25, but I pulled the team back and we won. And I said, that's, and that's what we should be working for. The shirt that you wear, the mindset you have is sharpening others, not succeeding necessarily for oneself, but for others, and
Yeah.
your success. I mean, when you're strong and you're fit and you're capable and you're there, you're present for other people, right? The expression, going back to like your disassociation thing, I learned a long time ago, probably not soon enough, right? I was in my early 20s and I was working with a British gentleman, a good friend of mine, and he's from Yorkshire. And he said, we were just grinding through some work, we were working, doing gardening and landscaping. And he said, well, we have a saying in Yorkshire, it's Yorkshire born, Yorkshire bred, strong in arm, thick in head. And I was like, maybe that's why many of the British are very good endurance athletes. They're some of the best ultra marathoners. Did you see the guy who swam around the British Isles?
I saw that. Yeah.
A British guy, strong in arm, thick in head. I'm sure he probably didn't think about much, or maybe he thought about a lot while he was in the water.
Yeah.
But, days, thousands of miles, where he was not allowing, things like, maybe his kids getting off to school, or, being there for, a play or something like that, where he endured those things because he knew maybe the time that him setting this record was going to be so much less than what it would yield for his future. And he's going to be that guy who swam around the British Isles probably for a very, very long time.
Yeah, that's true.
And
But you know what's cool? And here's what I want you, other people who are listening to this take from this is that when you see somebody do it once, there's going to be other people that do it. You
yeah,
know why? Because seeing is believing, right? And when you see a Buds graduation, when you see a Spec Ops graduation, that's really powerful for you, because I can look at those graduates and say, man, I can do that. And there is a saying that you got to see it to believe it. And sometimes that's what it takes. And even better, if you know those guys that are graduating, they're maybe a year ahead of you or something, and you've trained with them a little bit. And now that, they went into Buds with the same weaknesses and strengths that you had, but they still endured. That's a very big, powerful, just moment of realization that you have that can really help you with your why and
yeah,
your how.
yeah.
You know?
And I think, you're right, and I think you've done that for me as in terms of some of the stuff you've done for me. Like, just do it. Just
Yeah.
like, it's not rocket science. Just like, if they want to meet you, just set a time and just do it. You're going to do the workout anyway. And if they show up there, and it's not, it's not to say necessarily that on any, college was a little bit like that for me. I think sometimes you got to find your place, what college is for you, but thousands and thousands of people graduate every year. Right.
Sure.
And so, it's not impossible. And that there's people that are graduating from college that are single moms, single dads, people who've come back from military service, amputees, people who are dealing with learning differences, and so that if your why to get it done is strong enough, like you say, you will. And those people that, like today at the Y, I saw Bonnie, she has MS, and she reached out of the pool. She's like, hey, because I don't go in the indoor pool much. I go to the outdoor pool. I hadn't seen her in a while. I said, it's so good to see you here. I'm sorry I haven't seen you in a long time. She's like, it's so good to see you. And I think for her positive mindset with MS, I mean, her legs are Velcroed together. She can't use her legs, and she's still going up and down in the pool with a snorkel. She can't turn her neck. And
Oh,
I'm like, well, if you can do that,
that's awesome.
if you can wake up in the morning in pain and get in the pool in pain, why can't I do a circuit? Why can't I get in the pool even if I'm feeling a little queasy?
Yep.
So I agree 100% with you on that, and that we need to be modeling the behavior. And if you see guys going through Buds, and you see them all having varying degrees of success and failure, where some are stronger, and you're seeing guys fail in their small arms firing and getting another chance, or failing at the first time at their water, comp or whatever, and getting their second chance.
Yep.
Because I think that's a good thing too. And correct me if I'm wrong, when you get into some things like phase 2, you get 2 chances. You just can't fail your second, right?
No, you actually get 3 chances.
Okay.
This is three strikes, you're out. In fact, they'll even you can get 3 tries at the pool comp, like the scuba in second phase, which is pretty challenging. It's probably, after Hell Week, it's one of the more challenging events that is more tactically driven than it is physically driven. There's a lot of procedures you have to follow, and you can't panic, so there's got to calm down and do it. But you get 3 opportunities on a Friday, and then you get a 4th on a Monday. So you can actually, think about it over the weekend and come back even more panicked, or come back stronger and ready to go on that Monday. So anyway, it's one of those tests that's, it's a great test, but it's something that you just have to relax and remember the procedures. When people ask me, hey, about to go into pool comp, what do you recommend? I said, you know what? Just go over the procedures over and over and over again. Not till you get it right. Do it until you can't get it wrong. So it's just
I like that.
memorizing the procedures. And then also consider contingencies to the procedures, because sometimes all procedures don't necessarily go A, B, C, D, right? You may have to, because of the situation, you may have to go A, D, C, B, right? They're still the same procedures, but due to the situation, you may have to alter the organization. Don't get so caught up in A, B, C, D that you don't allow the flexibility to think through certain problems and rearrange the procedures, but follow the procedures.
I think that's I don't it's not intended to be metaphorical, but when you say that, that's a very good way to, in training too, is the procedure of your day, right? You always say fit them in when you can, right?
Yep.
And the procedure of your day or the procedure of your training, it doesn't have to be, I think people get fixed on these repetitions and these sets and these, distances and these times of I worked out for 2 hours today. Is that enough? They ask these questions. And I think that, you've said a bunch about stupid questions. And I think that they're unfair questions. They're questions I can't answer.
Yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you on that, but I don't like to be known as the guy that calls out stupid questions, because sometimes I get just tired of the same question that is easily researched, and it shows complete lack of initiative on the person asking the question. So that is what I call a stupid question. So if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, what's the eyesight that I need to be a Navy SEAL?" First of all, I don't remember, right? This is a reference in the medical Bureau, Navy Medical, Bureau of Navy Medicine, that is, online, and it tells you right there if you just Google it. So, I mean, back in my day, there was no Google. You had
Yeah.
to go to the actual publication and find it and figure out, what they were. So anyway, so that, I didn't mean to digress there, but that is my definition of stupid questions.
And
You know,
I agree with you. And it's one thing too that I actually spoke the other day about reference learning. It's not, I'm trying to coin a phrase about where one thing links to the next, where you look at one thing, you may not know something, so you have to look up, if you're talking about, how two things may compare, but you don't know, like how Picasso's blue period compares or whatever.
right.
So you look up the blue period. So I agree. And I think that it's interesting, that you mentioned the eyesight thing, because that's another level of enduring financial, maybe. Right.
Yeah.
I had a kid who contacted me phone, and I only ever trained him on the phone, and I told him about PRK because he needed to get LASIX or PRK.
Yeah.
So I told him a little bit about PRK and, so forth and so on, whatever. He ended up getting it, but he actually had to stall his contract because he had to save the money.
Yeah, save the money, and then there's a 6-month window after the surgery that
Yeah.
you need to take advantage of and train. I mean, you just can't dive, or you can't jump out of planes, I think, for those 6 months or something. I think that's the rule. They just want to give it a 6-month healing window before you can go through MEPS again and get
Yeah.
the
But
yeah.
yeah, he was the guy who I sent you that picture of when he got his contract. I had never met him. But that guy endured a lot. His mom got sick. He, was asking me about eye surgery. He had to sell his motorcycle. I mean, this guy, if he doesn't make it, I'm going to be furious, because
Yeah.
he did so much.
No kidding.
I mean, he was in Boston. He was going to move down and live near you. He's
Wow.
like, so what do you think about, he was living in Boston. He's like, I said, well, yeah, that's great. I mean, he works out every morning. That'd be awesome if you could do it, And his mom got sick, and he had to move back down to South Carolina, which is great. He took care of his mom, took care of himself, stayed, and he got his contract. And I just think the level of, I mean, he told me his times and his abilities and what he could lift and all that sort of stuff. So I didn't, think he was fibbing to me.
Right.
But I think that some kids or some young men or any, will give up on a goal based on some of the things that he had to do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's several things right there that can say, well, must not be for me, must not be my time, or whatever, seen it many times. Absolutely. I got to stay here and do this,
Yeah.
Which is nothing wrong with that. If that's what you got to do, you got to do, but that window is open for 10 years. And I like to say, tell people, like, look, don't, just because you turn 18 doesn't mean you have to join the Navy. It's not even a 10-year window. This is a 10-year barn door. I mean, you have a long time to go to buds. You got 10 years, 10-year window, right? Don't be in a rush to get it done at 18 and a half.
Yeah,
You know?
well, and I think going back to, not to jump all over everywhere, but going back to the encouragement too, that if you have some of those obstacles, you know, the people in your life that encourage you and support you can really help you drive through those things. You know, like if
Yeah,
you know, like his mom's sick, like, no, I want you to live your life. I've had my life. Live your life. If this is one of your life goals, those are the people that are going to drive you to then say, okay, you know, that I will step up and do this. You know,
absolutely. And that's a hell of a why.
yeah,
You know, my mom told me to live my life. This is my life. And, you know, that's a powerful why. I mean, like I said, you got to find your why. You know,
yeah,
why are you wanting to endure? You know, why are you going to put up with this? And because I tell you, no matter what program you're going to go through, usually the first week will show you what your weaknesses are. They will expose weaknesses,
yeah,
right? So you also, you know, your workout should also expose weaknesses. Your PSTs can expose weaknesses. You have to be mature enough to observe them and then have some corrective actions for that, you know, and make those weaknesses not so much weaknesses.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I think that's a valuable thing and a mature thing. It's, and I think that you would know better than and you know, all the guys who've gone through it and been through it, of how it just chips away constantly at your ego and
Yeah.
just shows you to step into every situation knowing that, you know, with time and with proper form and sound function and all the things that you have in that Venn diagram of eating right and sleeping right and, you know, flexibility and strength and mobility and all that, that if you're taking all those things, it will come. And that, you know, that you know, I watched you know, I sent you that song, that Ronnie Coleman song,
Oh yeah,
and I
that was
was,
hardcore.
well, yeah, and just, it's like the words are just really about how he, you know, again, he's a bodybuilder, but the pain he endured because of how much he loved it, you know, how much he loved, and he has this mindset where he's crippled. He was an 8-time Mr. Olympia. I mean, just this mountain of a man, literally, and he's now crippled. And he's sitting there, and he has the crutches, you know, that have the forearm braces, and he's like, "I've come a long way." And many people would say, how far has he fallen? And I think that who he is as a person is so powerful because of, you know, the all the surgeries, the hip replacements, the back, the fusion, all of that stuff. He still says, look how far I've come, because surgeons and doctors said he was going to be in a wheelchair.
Right.
He still goes to the gym every day in some capacity.
Yeah.
And he's, you know, and he will also say he wouldn't change anything. And he has this ingrained mindset of, when he was talking about how he squatted 800 pounds twice, and he's like, I think I could have got 5, you know, I think I got 5, but he's like, you know, I went over to the leg press machine and I did 2,300 pounds for, you know, for 10. And how he always can reframe anything that he's done, even in, you know, when he's in constant pain, into
Yeah.
a positive. And I think that's, you know, we've talked about that before, but you can endure situations if you can always reframe them. You know, I think we talked about that when we talked about flow
Yep.
and things like that. But it's interesting, and I think that, you know, like I said in the beginning, it's hypothetical until you experience it. And this sounds weird. I didn't know it, was fortunate at the time, but in my teenage years and I witnessed a lot of death, you know, and went to a lot of wakes and things like that. And I think that made me a little bit more durable, you know, for some of the harder things that were going to come up, you know, in life. And I think that you have to reflect back on those situations for you to increase your, you know, your, I guess we want to call it maybe mental, emotional durability,
Sure.
endurance.
Sure.
Um, so again, you know, that's really where, you know, I think so many individuals need to um, focus their training, and just like the kid that I'm training right now, I mean, he was hurting today. He put a kickboard under his knee for our lunges, and I said, that's really comfortable. You know, I said, that's too comfortable. So he moved that
Mm.
out. So he's a little green, but he's in no hurry. And I think that's good. Like, he wants to get as many experiences as possible. I think he wants to, get under a log, get under a boat, go for long rucks for over a year. And I think that's, like you've talked about, you want guys to spend about a year with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good mindset, is get as many experiences as you can and try to be present and think on them, reflect on them so they can strengthen you. So,
I mean, if you think about it too, I mean, it's really all about inoculating yourself from stress. All
yes.
of these things are stress inoculators,
Yep.
mental, physical, emotional stress inoculators. And, you go through them with time. And sometimes that's all you need, just time.
Yep.
Be patient. Now, after you sent me that quote of about the difference between endurance and the ability to endure, I also saw that same day, I said, yeah, let's do a podcast on this because this is really great. On that same day, one of my old SEAL buddies who also became an instructor, and he was an instructor during the 234, documentary. He's on there. So anyway, he came up with this really neat quote, and it's, I'm not sure if he came up with it or he found it, but this is this is verbalizes exactly what we're trying to do, right? So listen to this. So the question isn't how much more you can take, but how much more can you give? Just when you are ready to quit, your mind says push harder. You listen, sensing an inner strength that wasn't there before, and suddenly you discover you no longer feel pain.
I like it.
So it's the pain is no longer there. So it is kind of a unique way of saying, we're basically dissociating the pain away. You're thinking of something else. Your why is making it, more of a focus on that. I'd say one thing that helped, I think, at Buds is being such a good team player that you're more concerned about your team. You're more concerned about your boat crew than you are yourself. And that is very powerful, because I remember being more concerned about, people in the boat crew than myself. Now, I was a boat crew leader because I went through as an officer, and that was, part of our, I guess, camaraderie of that group, is I really wanted to be kind of there for everybody, as one of the, the boat crew leaders. And for me, I think it helped me, instead of me worrying about myself and just me underneath that boat, I was checking out everybody, make sure everybody was good to go. And we were running fast enough without hurting somebody, or, because I mean, here's the deal. You're as fast as your slowest person.
Yep.
When you're with a team. Now there's another saying too, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together.
Yep.
And that's very true in at Buds, because Hell Week is not fast, it is far.
Yeah, well, in my leadership classes, that's what I really try to teach, is that, when you're doing unified team burpees, if anyone's out of sync, like you were talking about, the ballet movements or music, if anyone's out of sync, then they fail and they have to reset. So and what I had some really powerful kids who were really altruistic and caring, and were like, they realized what I was trying to get to. Like, they can't go faster than the kid who's dogging it. And he's not dogging it because he wants to,
Right.
because he's not as physically fit as them. And I'm working with a different, a different demographic, right?
Sure.
But that is the real goal. And I find that it's tough when there are kids that are trying to get college commitments and college scholarships, because they're kind of like out for themselves. They have to be.
Yeah.
And so how do you get that, that what you were talking about, where, the best way you're going to succeed, in a tactical career, is that if you are caring more about the person next to you than yourself, and you're doing that because that if you show that you will probably get that in reciprocity.
Right. And on the flip side too, because of that caring, because of that understanding, the guys who are maybe slower or a little bit weaker than everybody else, they step up their game. Right. Yep. And as opposed to, falling out, right? They step up their game because they have that little bit of extra, assurance that, hey, these guys got my back.
Yeah.
That's a very powerful message, especially when you're going into a tactical population, that teamwork matters.
Yeah.
Teamwork matters. There's a big saying that, underneath the boat, it either makes or breaks the team.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it fall apart.
Yeah.
Real fast too. Or you come together and you're best of friends for life.
Yeah, and I think that's great too, because I have an inflatable raft that I have the kids carry, and it bothers their necks and their heads and all that, and they start to realize that if one guy steps out or isn't carrying his weight, it puts the weight on the other guy.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they only have me for a little bit, and then you hear stories and you get text messages. Oh, I remember. And the guys are, coming back for alumni weekend. And like, remember that time Bonus made us carry that boat? And, they're, they're making fun of me or whatever, but they're bonded.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're a hockey player and a basketball player and we do those things too in the leadership to make sure that we get them off their playing field so that they have another kind of level playing field to make a connection.
Yep.
So,
I like it.
Not just endure the situation and become tougher and stronger, and handle the stress that I'm throwing at you, on a Friday afternoon or whatever it is. It's also much of what you said is showing how you can bond through those experiences, and how, sometimes when you are going through a tough process, how a shoulder or someone who can give you perspective, be like, hey man, I've been there before. Someone who, reaches out, and is that kind of that brother who reaches out and says, I've been there, man, and I'm here now. Not saying I'm great or anything, but I'm here now, and I got through it, and you can do it. And like you said, going back to seeing other people do it, getting that perspective of a guy who went through a really tough situation, family, whatever,
yeah,
and then is there now and is successful. And so I think that, so many guys that I see are just so concerned about how many push-ups and how much pull-ups they can do, and that's endurance. But can you leave the comfort of your home, your bed, your 3 meals a day? Can you endure discomfort? Can you endure, weeks, months away? I mean, so the duration of time away, like, you have the 3 phases, and you have SQT, and that's like, SQT is like what, 26 weeks or something?
Yeah, that's another. Yeah, it's a year-long process between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're getting into a long distance event.
Yep.
And you have to be ready to deal with the struggles and the things that are going to be thrown at you, like I said, that are hypothetical. So, and I just, I appreciate you thinking it's a good topic.
Oh, it's great. Absolutely. I mean, look, we can wrap this up here, any minute now. But before we do, I just want to say thank you for what you do up in Connecticut. He offers his time for people to train people for military, law enforcement, firefighter programs within this Heroes of Tomorrow circle that we have. And, he's a school teacher as well, and family man. And, he's busy, but he still offers his time. And, I appreciate that. That's, it's very American of you. So I appreciate it. And you're a great mentor as well. So thanks for your time. Thanks for this topic idea. Because,
thanks.
This is good.
Thanks for your time, and thanks for your encouragement. And, again, it's great. It's brought a lot, like I've told you, it's brought a lot of, my mom's now, since my dad passed, she's volunteering at the VA. And there is, like you said, there is something powerful when there is no money exchanged. And you put a kid or a young person through a lot of hurt, and they reach their hand out and say thank you. It's just, it's a powerful thing. So I encourage anyone who can, get out and take part in it, because it's one of the most rewarding things that I've been able to do. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, man, no problem. Well, until next time, my friend, let's come up with something else, and we'll do another one.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.